First of all, let me say that I'm very sorry for being that late, but there was a decision taken by Zoom to install some update. I don't know why. So I had some time struggling actually with stopping that. So let me welcome everybody. And I would like to say that Techstamina is now, which is now Techstamina Consulting, is more than happy to have you for this evening. We expect to take you for maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour. So we'll forgive us for that because we announced that it's going to be 1 hour, 30 minutes. So the problem is that when we rehearsed it, Ahmed and myself, we found that we may be in need of more time. So let's go and see how it's going to go. I will just open the share the screen and on the desktop and online lecturing. Here we are. Is my voice heard nicely, or we have any troubles?
Oh no, it's perfect.
Okay, very good. So now you see the presentation. You should be seeing the presentation. Do you?
Not yet.
Not yet. How about that? Not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. So I have shared the screen. Just give me a couple of minutes struggling with that. I don't know what's happening so as to now you should be seeing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me welcome you again, and let's delve straight away into the subject, which I consider actually to be a very hot and a very important one. As you see from the title, could a software company dissolve and under remoteness in the coronal era? So there are two things to notice here. Dissolve, that's a big word, of course, but it's true. This is what we are going to prove together when we go into the content a little bit deeper. And the coronal, it's not post-coronal. This is one other point that we are going to discuss also as we proceed. Let me just give you a brief about your speakers today. My name is Medhat Sabry. My background is aeronautical engineering, actually. I've been into the software development since the mid-70s. The story is too long. There is someone coming, I will admit. And it's a very long story to tell, actually, with heaps of experience up there. I'm not going to take too long telling you about that, so you can see it on LinkedIn. It's a long story to tell, as I tell you. And let me welcome also Ahmed Bisbah, who is a very well-noticed enthusiast and well-noticed expert, actually. Plus, I call him an activist. Actually, Ahmed is one of the assets that I personally made a lot of benefit of knowing him as a colleague. And he is my guest speaker and my co-speaker, actually, this evening. And this is just a very little step for what's coming in the future. We don't know exactly where we will go together, but generally, in the very least, Ahmed will be a contributor, a main contributor to Techstamina consulting in the future, as a presenter, as a speaker, and speaker, and a writer, author, whatever that will be there. And of course, he will join me in the consulting activity. I hope he'll have the time to do so, because he has his own engagement at the moment, I know. But generally speaking, there is one new component to Techstamina that has been there as a site for like 8 years now. Now it's presenting its consulting services, and I hope Ahmed will have the time to contribute in that too. So that's about us, and you will go to LinkedIn and see more, and we will send the links, of course, if you don't know us, at least Ahmed. Our purpose for today is a very crucial one. We are going to highlight some intricacies we think that have been created in the way we work and in the employee experience. I like that terminology very much. First time I hear about it was from Ahmed while we were rehearsing for this, and it's a very true one. Employee experience, that is going hand in hand with what happened in software arena due to the pandemic over the 2.5 years so far. This was actually affecting the psyche, the productivity, and the creativity. These are the components of the what we call the employee experience over time in the last 2.5 years. So we're going to raise flags to let the software industry decision makers get more awareness about how situation is critical nowadays. Because if you don't notice that and let things go as they used to go, problems started to gather around you, and as we will discuss, there will be an unfavorable situation for many companies if they don't start actually to take some measures in order to reconfigure the work environment subsequent to this kind of trauma. In our talk, we are going to touch the following points. First thing we are going to point out very quickly, let me just stop here a minute, just a second, and tell you that this is not the full-fledged presentation. What we have here is a preview about what we are going to deliver to you next to that. So the main points that we are going to touch, first thing is that we are going to point out some or the main hazards that accompanied the ease of working from home. There were some side effects for that. We are going to see how that affects the business, how that affects individuals, or at least point out what is affected by remoteness over the last 2.5 years. And then we are going to move to another point because I think that it's more than just post-corona. We are going to hear about things, and we started to hear about things that have the same effect on business. So the question is it coronal or just post-corona? Is it continuing in one way or another, or it is something that just happened once and will not leave any permanent or will not recur in the future? Then we'll take you to specifically to the software industry, and we'll try to answer the question, are we more vulnerable than other industries? We will see that and why. And we then move to another point, which is the business now is under a threat. So what about the future? Then we come.
If I may interrupt, can you give me the host role so that I would allow people to come into the session without interrupting you all the time?
All right. So.
Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. I'm just getting messages that some people are trying to join, and it seems that because you're busy explaining, so I'll handle that while you deliver the presentation.
I think.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's necessary. We do that from the participants, I think, and then or from the security or from the participants to give you the roles. Spotlight around.
I think you can. There is a button that is going to appear on top of my image or my video. I think there will be an option in the drop-down menu to
okay.
Give me. I think so because yeah.
Make host. Okay. Here we got it.
Okay, perfect. So sorry for the interruption. I'll handle the people coming in then.
Not at all. Not at all. Let's disable the participants check. All right. So let me get back to the presentation. We were just talking about the hazards, or just pointing out what we are going to talk about in this preview. Is that the slide that you are seeing now?
No, I think you need to reshare your slides.
To reshare. Host disabled participants share screen sharing. So something is happening which I cannot figure out. I'm trying to share the screen again. Or I'm trying to share the screen, but I can't get there.
Oh.
No.
Okay, I'll start. I'll be presenting from my machine, and You can just instruct me to move to the next slide.
Okay, okay.
Okay, that would be.
I think there was an installation going on when I went in, and something is going wrong with this. Okay, you can go on.
That's perfectly fine. I'm just give me one moment. Okay, if you can see the slides, you can proceed. So we were
Okay.
talking about
In this talk, what we are going to present
yes.
in this talk. So,
Okay.
based on what we said in the couple of points that I just made, we can figure out that our business is certainly under a threat, and we need to look into the future in order to prevent any decay or unfavorable effects that may take place on the business due to the remoteness which is happening, which we experienced actually in the last 2.5 years. Based on that, we will talk about the core point, which is the necessity of having a strategy and what kind of elements that have to go into that strategy in order to avoid any counter effects on the business. Once we finish that, we come to some takeaways, and then we make a sort of display or suggestions for what's coming in the future. Of course, after that, we will are recording the presentation, and we'll make it available to you. We will send you also some links if there is a need for that. I think the links of our LinkedIn profiles immediately after we finish this presentation. So let's move to the next slide. Well, there are hazards for remoteness. Remoteness is something working from remote, working from anywhere is something that is nice at the beginning. And all the research that has been done there shows that productivity has gone high, and then it started to go low. People had been experiencing something new, something that puts them actually in their comfort zone, and hence increases their productivity in a way. But as time is going, you will see, I will start to see actually that productivity is going a little bit downward, and the explanation for this is either boredom or the state of uncertainty that people have been in for some time. So I would like to tell you that hazards are touching every aspect of the industry. It's going to the individual, it's going, of course, of the team, and on the operations. And on the operations, it's very important that the total of the operations is the outcome of your projects. And people, when they don't feel psychologically safe inside a company, they started to leave companies, even the big titans, and go to the smaller ones in where actually they were fine. They were finding much better situations that are suiting their psychological fitness, you can say. Generally, on the organizational culture, and the organizational culture, to me, it's nothing but the glue that holds people together. It's a kind of an agreement, unsaid agreement on things that we all do without telling each other that we should do this. It's finally a kind of glue inside or glue between the components of any organization. when that is touched, organizations gradually started to disintegrate. At that point, I would like to ask Ahmed, actually, being a well-noted expert in the market and being a leader in the software business, what do you think the situation is? Are we right about telling people about these hazards, or we are exaggerating in a way?
No, I think remote work is a hazard. I've read an article recently which was titled Remote Work, a Disruptor or Just a Natural Evolution. So the title is really interesting and raises a very important question. Is remote work just a natural evolution, or is it a disruptor? And when we talk about disruptions, disruptions can be considered as hazards if companies are not prepared for them and are willing to do the necessary transformation to be able to adapt and cope with these disruptors. So I think that remote work is a disruptor. It's not simply a natural evolution. And if not properly considered with a proper strategy, it's certainly a hazard or a threat, as we will talk about later.
I share that with you, and I think all my readings in past few, I may say, months point out the same fact. And even in one or two companies which I've been working as a consultant for, I found that there's a state of chaos that is building up because no strategy has been defined to deal with the situation in the post pandemic situation. So let's go to the next slide. So the question here, is it coronal or just post-coronal? In my point of view, I should call it, actually, I should prefer to call it coronal. And why? Nobody can guarantee it's not fighting back. Same virus, or maybe another COVID, which is XY, not 19 this time, or even there can be another thing, which I metaphorically call here gotcha NM, some new organism that is going to cause a problem. And we started to hear about that very soon from the WHO, something related to monkeys, something like that. I don't know exactly the name of the virus or the name of the pandemic, but something is happening and something is coming. So in my opinion, the prefix post is not very expressive or very true in this case. It's going to be, you can call it a coronal situation, using coronal as a metaphor in this case. And plus, we would say that it may not even a pandemic. It can be also an impinging danger due some kind of a state of war or instability, political instability, as you see in the Ukrainian war right now, which is affecting all aspects of the human life on the planet. And that can bring us to a state of turmoil. I would say that it's not something that is passing away. It is recurrent, could be recurrent, and there must be a strategy to deal with anything that you might encounter in the future. Next slide, please. We ask ourselves the question, in the software industry, are we more vulnerable than others? Let me start it from another angle. We have enjoyed a lot of facilities because we can work from anywhere. But what about the side effects? What about the disadvantage that we can pay back? Software is a special industry. And let me again come back to Ahmed here and let him just point out what is peculiar with software, especially as an industry, that would make it more vulnerable to getting affected by remoteness.
So, two slides prior to this one, we were talking about threats. So we will build on this idea that remoteness can be a threat, especially to software companies. And I'm going to give two examples of aspects in the software industry that can be threatened by remote work if not adopted at all, or if it is adopted in a chaotic manner, as you have mentioned earlier, Medhat. So the first threat really is in recruiting and in hiring good or great talents. We've recently started hearing about remote first strategy. So companies right now are considering going completely remote as the norm and working on site as the exception. So since this strategy or term has been incepted or coined, candidates have started looking for remote first companies. And when a company tells them, oh no, well, working remotely is the exception and on-site is the norm, they decide not to continue on with the recruitment process. So this is one threat, losing great talents to remote first strategies. The second threat is turnover. So in this coronal era, we have experienced turnover due to remoteness. Again, I say either not being adopted at all or being adopted without proper strategy. So we see a lot of developers or software professionals leaving their companies because they got used to working remotely and they no longer want to go back to the era that was prior to the corona era. We also see people leaving because of burnout. When the adoption is chaotic, people tend to be overproductive. The experience wear out, and eventually they leave. The third reason for the high turnover is people getting fired due to poor productivity. That's actually the opposite of the second point we've mentioned. So some people leave the company because they are burnt out, and some others get fired because they are no longer disciplined, they're no longer responsible, they aren't productive as they used to be on site with proper supervision and visibility, and so they get fired and we get high turnover. So I think these are just two examples of how remoteness can be a threat to software companies. Companies can lose great talents either by not hiring them at all or losing them to turnover, either by resignation or getting fired.
Okay, if I may, one little point here, it's about the mindset of the people working in this industry. I have always been an advocate of this. People in cognitive creative work, which is essentially things like or software in the first place, are the most prone to be affected by the psychological effects around their work environment. And that is where the situation hits people in this industry more than anybody else. So the psychological safety gets affected more than people in other businesses. And that makes us move to the next slide, please. Let me summarize and come to the main point. Can a software company dissolve under remoteness? After all what you have seen, the answer is actually yes. There are two things that can make that even more dangerous. Could you just please show the next bullet? Yes. There are two things that, two factors, in my opinion, that will make that a more dangerous situation. The first thing is, by nature, any negative change that happens to the business is usually proceeding malignantly, unfelt, until it suddenly causes a damage. So we are all now very busy with things related to production, finishing our products in the right time, our delivery processes, and a lot of turmoil is happening. People unhappy, managers are not satisfied with the state of discipline that they are used to exercise on people, and all that sort of situation, which is we are busy with, and we are not noticing what's happening to the people in the first place. And what happens to the people is transferred to the business. The business owners, one second point is that the business owners, the managers and decision makers are always affiliated to think in a mandating way. So they are much busy actually with enforcing control and discipline, thinking that this is the way to get things back into the norms. That is not true. What they have to focus on actually is more than that. And we will see in the next slide how can we start thinking about a new strategy for the get back. Actually, it's not the get back, it's actually for the future configuration or reconfiguring your work environment for the future in a cohesive way, because we are starting a new era or a new business evolution, a new evolution in the way we, as human, we used to work. Next slide, please. So building our own strategy should depend on 4 dimensions, or go through 4 axes, or consider 4 directions. The first is the psychological, and we put the psychological as the #1 because we are talent. It's not labor; it's a talent-based kind of activity, of human activity, and for that we have to mind the psychological status of the people as the first thing that should take our attention or grab our attention. Secondly, of course, it's the technological, because this is the way we do things. And third, the administrative, because we have to rearrange things, our space utilization, our way of arranging our activity or planning our activity in a more limited space than we ever used to have. And we should pay attention to a lot of administrative points in that. And finally, and more importantly of all, it's the leadership. The leadership has to change or undergo some kind of a transformation to embrace all these axes together and try to come up with something that is more robust in front of the new threat or the new hazards that we have just talked about in the era of remoteness. Now, if we just look at them in order, we put, as we see, we put the psychological first, technological second, administrative third, and leadership, nevertheless, because it's less important, it is actually the one that embraces the whole together. I would say if you ask technical people and to order these things, they would have put the technology access first. But we emphasize here again and again that the psychological access comes first. Okay, let's move to the next one, please. I leave it to Ahmed now for the psychological and the technical slides to give us his views about what are the elements we should consider in building a new strategy along these axes.
Okay, so I actually want to congratulate Medhat on formulating these 4 axes and choosing psychology or the psychological aspect as the first axis.
Thank you.
Why is that? Because to my understanding, Techstamina is the people-centric way in software development. So it makes perfect sense that we first start with the psychological aspect. So I've again recently read that research has shown that there are adverse psychological effects, as Medhat has said as well, of working remotely. And those are isolation, loneliness, stress, anxiety, depression, and pressure. So it makes a lot of sense that the first thing we need to consider when adopting remoteness is to make sure that people are in the right psychological state. And the ways we can do so is by providing them care, respect, safety, and a lot of other different things. So this is regarding the psychological aspect. And as Medhat has said, in the mind of a technical person, technology would come first, when in reality, what we see from remote work, it's all about people. Technology is but an enabler. And I think that is what we are going to say in the next slide, unless, of course, Medhat has something to add in the psychological or the psychology axis.
So thank you very much for bringing to the front stage the essence, the main essence of Techstamina, because it's about people actually in the first place. And then the next slide is yours too.
Okay, so as I've said, technology should not be first, but it is an enabler. And I think that without technology, we couldn't have ever spoken about working remotely from home or anywhere. So when companies consider adopting remote first strategies, they must evaluate and assess the maturity of the technology you have in order to enable or facilitate remote work. And before we decide what technology to adopt and choose, we have to understand what benefits is the technology going to provide, and what is it exactly going to enable. So again, Medhat here puts 6 great points to consider when thinking about the technology axis. Those are collaboration, managed workflow, security, data safety, continuity, and performance. You need all of these in the technology you're going to consider adopting to enable remote work. If one of these criteria or aspects is dropped, again, as Medhat has said, you can experience a chaotic or a catastrophic adoption of remote work. So again, that's all about technology. I'm not sure if Medhat wants to add another point. Medhat, please go ahead.
All right. So, well, nothing to add that much, but I would say that just playing wrong with any of these will make things even worse with the psychological and satisfaction status of people. So these all have to be well managed, well looked after. There's no kidding in performance. There's no kidding in stability of the systems that you are using. That's very important for things to go the right way with the status of the mindset of the whole situation of having a stable operation in that era. Let's look at the next one, please. Well, that's actually my slide, I believe. When that's based on my own personal observations. What we'll have to do is to look very thoroughly into the way we are using our space, because many companies will actually reduce the space that the area actually they are using as a workspace. So if you think of that, you have to plan a very effective way of utilizing the space which you have already reduced. Secondly, you have to ask yourself, because some people will get frustrated because they already invested in more space right before that happens. So they get frustrated with this situation. Actually, there is nothing without a solution, or partially, not if not totally. You will have to find the situation to reduce any losses due to that. You have to think of it maybe with your finance and find a good solution or a good resort to lessen any side effect or adverse effect on your business from the financial point of view. Third, I would say, and that is very important, because you are going to share resources. Everyone had his desktop before that. Now, if you and me share one desktop when I go to the facility, that has to be planned. If we use a meeting area, you and me, my team and your team, and I go and I find that it is occupied, that is again adding up to the situation of discomfort for the people working in such a situation. For that reason, we have to have a space resource collision prevention mechanism. We have to implement some tool that will make reservation for the work area, be that for the cubicle, for instance, for somebody to sit in and work, or for a meeting area, and be sure that there is no collision between people on the place. And space prevention, space provisioning. You don't have to provide the space enough for everybody to come and work whenever they want. You should think of provisioning space on demand and put that provider on your list in case that you need to hire or need to rent some co-working space You would have to have a solution for that ready whenever. Some care has to be provided here about the administration of the space and the space utilization. There has to be some kind of intelligence around that. So next, please. Now we come to the leadership axis. This is the most important because it actually enables, or it's again, it's an enabler for the rest of the efforts on the three other axes. Transformation of leadership to a new model has to be considered. More embracing model, more understanding model, more motivating model, more coaching model. We have to sit down all together and rethink how we are going to lead people who are not sitting all the time together as they used to be. How are we going to absorb the tensions they are suffering because of remoteness? How are we going to take up the state of boredom and anxiety? So putting in some in-depth component in leadership of psychology in leadership is necessary for all organizations in the coming era. All right, my friend. Let's go to some takeaways and remind ourselves with the following facts. Forget about any parental get-back mandates. This is more hazardous than useful. This is number one, very important. Consider it not post-coronal. Consider it, metaphorically speaking, a coronic situation which will last. And don't treat it as something transient. 3, build your own strategy to deal with a new way of working and a new environment that has been born by a situation that nobody could expect, even in the worst cases in the last decade, per se. And build your strategy paying attention to these 4 axes, or with these 4 considerations in mind. Finally, you have to engage your people and don't deprive them from having a say in their future. This is, again, paying positively to their psychological fitness and wellness in the coming era. All right? And from that point on, I was very actually pleased to have Ahmed with me, with his practical view to things, and with his fantastic background about many aspects in the industry. And I would say and promise to have another edition of this presentation, fleshing it in with more ideas and tips. And once we announce this, we hope that you join us too. Besides Techstamina being a small consulting firm, it has been as a side there for 8 years now, but now we are transforming this to a little consulting firm with some insight that can help you in this particular situation. We will be very pleased, more than pleased and honored actually, to share anyone as part of his team to build this strategy to meet the situation which we have raised flags against in this preview lecture. And that's all for now. And on behalf of Ahmed and myself, I would like to thank you very much and invite you for the coming one, which we will announce soon, inshallah. If you have any questions, we can proceed. You can have any questions now if you like, and you can send that to the info@techstamina.com. Just remind me, Ahmed, we promised some links to send, and maybe some URL for the recording also. Is that right? So
Yeah.
if anybody has a question, let's shoot it now. It's up to you.
I just like to thank you and thank Ahmed for this presentation. Like I really felt it touched me as working in the software industry, and like seeing the companies, mine and other companies, like how the things were really affected by the chronic situation, and will be, and still there's no consistent way of dealing with things. So I really wish that this would be delivered to as much companies as possible, so that this level of awareness and strategies that are really going down to earth and real work be implemented. And thank you for delivering it in this really simple way. Thanks a lot.
We thank you for coming, first of all, and we thank you for your comment, and we promise to do that. Any more?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Your name is May, right? So that's my daughter's name. And Sabri is my father's name, by the way. So we've got the two, the grandfather and the daughter. Thanks, Mel. Thank you very much. So Ahmed, you will take care with, kindly take care to remind me, you and me, to remind yourself and myself to send these links and this to the ladies. All right?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course.
Thank you very much, and see you in the next presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.